Hey everyone, I hope you're well. Yesterday I made a video about how Revenant's hitbox is broken, and it led me to wonder, are there other broken hitboxes in the game, and is the hitbox story deeper than we first thought? And I did learn some very interesting things. I found that a lot of the hitboxes aren't as refined as, say, Pathfinder's, which got a really good update earlier on in the release of Apex Legends. So yes, some hitboxes are pretty bad, but how do they all rank when we consider the actual hitboxes versus the player models? What do they look like? Which one's the best? Which fortified legend is the best? Which low profile legend is the best? Which normal legend is the best? I'm going to go through all of this stuff in the hopes to give you some advice about which legend has the best hitbox. And of course, we will go into strafing animations too, because they play a very vital part in gameplay. I hope that this video could also serve as a way to bring some awareness to some of the issues that some legends have with hitboxes, and it certainly may make you decide who you may want to play in Apex Legends, because as we all know, with Wraith and Pathfinder, the hitbox size is certainly very important. So yes, this is sort of a multi-purpose video, and we'll get into it. Now, the testing format was pretty simple. I just lined up all of the legends at a wall, stayed at the same distance, shot around the body, and noticed where shots registered and where they didn't. Now, to create the outline, I used Photoshop and a lot of editing, cutting bits and pieces, going through the footage over and over again to make sure it all lined up. So no, this isn't 100% accurate, but it's as close as we're going to get, really. And what I've done is I've taken the area of pixels in each of these images to get an idea of which hitbox is actually bigger, because when we stack them up side by side, the whole story isn't so clear, but I'll explain later why a pixel area is important. It doesn't tell the whole story. So yeah, we'll show you all of the legend hitboxes now on screen. I'll go through each of them and explain their problems. I'll then compare them all together with the different sizes, and then we will kind of rate them from 1 to 10, and then we'll go into the animations. So we'll start with Revenant, of course. Now this may look a little different to the hitbox that I did yesterday. With some more testing, I found that the bounds of where the hitbox are a little bit more like this. So if you shoot around where this little piece of fabric is, sometimes hits register, sometimes they don't. It's a bit strange, but yeah, this seems to be the outer bounds of that strange area. So we can assume for the most part you're going to hit shots if you hit around here. Any area below this, you're not really going to hit that often. Another thing to notice is the area above where Revenant's arms are. Now, whether or not Revenant has his arms folded like this or down, the area in between his arms and his chest do register shots. So this is a really big issue with Revenant's body, and you'll see later he's one of the biggest in terms of hitbox size. Next we have Crypto, and this does have a few little hitbox errors. It's not as refined as some of the other hitboxes. His coat, for example, takes shots when it's not really a part of his body. There are some areas underneath his arm that get shot, some areas on his legs that get shot, and even part of his drone and his neck collar gets shot too. All of these shots register as hits when you play as Crypto. Next we have Watson. Now for the most part this is a pretty refined hitbox, although there are the areas between the legs that most of the time do register as hits. So for the sake of this, I have completely filled in this area between the legs. 90% of the time you're going to hit shots if you aim for Watson's legs. Now there are also some areas near her hips and underneath her arms that register as shots when they shouldn't do, but thanks to her small size, she generally doesn't take as much space as many of the other legends. She's on the smaller side for sure, and do note that a lot of her coat and the equipment hanging off the side of her does not take damage. Now we're on to Octane, and this actually, in my opinion, is more broken than Revenant's hitbox. Octane's hitbox is terrible. I noticed that there's a massive area above Octane's head which registers headshots. So even though Octane doesn't have the biggest hitbox in the game, I would argue that he has one of the biggest head hitboxes because of this issue, and that is a real problem. Also, there is a huge area underneath Octane's arm, around his chest, which registers a ton of shots as well. Besides that, everything is pretty on point, and the legs are really good. Everything below the waist is really good, but yeah, the chest and the head are terrible, and it's a really big problem when you're getting headshotted when nobody's even shooting your head. As you can see in this footage here, this is really bad. Mirage also has a similar problem with bullets registering around the chest and under the arms. Now, it's not as big on Mirage as it is on Octane, but it's certainly there. For the most part, the rest of Mirage's hitbox is pretty much in line with what you see. Now, that's not such a great thing for Mirage because Mirage is quite a wide character, which means he's definitely near the upper limits in terms of area taken up. In terms of pixels, Mirage actually takes up the most amount of pixels for a non-fortified character. Next we have Caustic. Now Caustic also got a hitbox change earlier in the game, so you can see that the hitbox here is very refined. It really does stick to his body. This is one of the most refined hitboxes in the game, but obviously Caustic is a very big character, which means there's still a lot of pixels that do register. However, there is an area underneath his little cape thing, I don't know what to call it, his whatever it is, science clothes. What is that? Does anybody know? Tell me in the comments, I'm not sure. So it was kind of hard to get the exact dimensions here because we're shooting and we can't see what's on the other side, thankfully. Either way, yeah, this area does not register as bullets. This is one of the cleanest hitboxes in the game, but yes, still on the upper end because he's so big. Next we have Bangalore, who surprised me. Bangalore has one of the most refined hitboxes in the game, and what's really great about Bangalore is that she has this skirt which doesn't register shots, so her actual hitbox is really small. She has these really thin legs that are wide apart. She's not the smallest legend, but she is pretty small, and she kind of bends over a little bit when aiming down sights and when strafing, so she has one of the smallest hitboxes in the game despite not being a low profile legend. Next we have Big Boy Gibby, and yes, you'll see that it's a different hitbox this time because we have changed the angle. All of these legends are aiming down sight at the exact same angle, so yeah, we kind of see more of Gibby at this position than we did yesterday. He literally looks like a tube on legs, which is fine because Gibby has his gun shield which really blocks a lot of what you're able to shoot at. So yes, Gibby is massive, absolutely massive, but the gun shield is well balanced. It really suits his kit. He doesn't need any changes. He doesn't need to be made small. He's in such a good state now. He's been balanced really well. It doesn't matter that he's big. So yeah, he's really big, but it's not a problem. Next we have Wraith, and it should be no surprise that she is the smallest legend by far. In terms of her height, she's so small, so that explains why her hitbox is so small as well. For the most part, Wraith's hitbox is pretty much on point with her body. It's one of the more refined hitboxes, but there are some areas like a little bit under her arms and in front of her waist which do take bullets when they shouldn't, but besides that, yeah, because she's so small, she has the best hitbox in the game. Next we have Pathfinder, and once again Pathfinder got refined early on, so yeah, pretty much all of the equipment on Pathfinder's body does not take bullets. His hitbox is so good now, which is a problem because he is kind of all over the place if you look at his body shape, which means it's really hard to hit shots on him. There's a really large area between his legs which you're going to miss shots on. He's just such a problem to hit. His head is really small as well, which makes headshots really hard on a Pathfinder player. There have been so many times where if it was any other legend, I would have hit them in the head, but I missed with Pathfinder. So he's got the second best hitbox in the game. It's not the smallest hitbox. In terms of pixel size, it's not the smallest hitbox, but because of that head size, I really do think that makes a big difference. Now, Bloodhound isn't as bad as many people think. I mean, now that we've seen the head hitbox for Octane, we can see why Bloodhound isn't a problem, but besides that, Bloodhound is pretty large in terms of the area of pixels. Bloodhound is a pretty large, wide legend, still smaller than Mirage, which is great, but the head hitbox is bigger than Mirage. It's bigger than most legends. It's kind of hard to say if it's bigger than Revenants, but it may end up being the biggest head hitbox in the game, besides the broken Octane one, of course. So yeah, that's a big problem. Now we have Lifeline, and this one's a little bit weird. It's got a few little issues here and there, like under the arms, near the waist, near the legs. Some areas on the legs actually doesn't register bullets when you probably think it should, but overall it comes out pretty decent, one of the best hitboxes in the game, but it's not the best. So I created this bar chart to give you a better idea of the pixel area for each legend. So obviously Wraith is at the bottom with the smallest, Gibraltar's at the top, basically more than 2 times bigger than Wraith's, which is hilarious. And then we have this pretty interesting curve in terms of sizes. Regardless of errors in the hitboxes, if the hitboxes were all fixed, then it makes me think that each legend should have a varying degree of health reduction or health increase when taking damage, because as you can see there's so much variance. It's kind of unfair to say putting Wraith, Lifeline, Watson and Pathfinder together is a little bit strange. Wraith is so much smaller than the other 3 legends. In this list there are 3 legends which I want to kind of go into a bit more details about. Revenant's hitbox is obviously way too big for a low profile legend. He is the 3rd biggest hitbox in the game and he has low profile. That's ridiculous. That needs to be changed. Low profile needs to go. His hitbox needs to be adjusted a bit and fixed. I know that they can do it. Hopefully they'll do it soon, and that's kind of why I'm making this video. Octane also needs his head hitbox fixed, and then he'll be in that mid-range with everybody else. Probably be around the same size as Crypto, so that's pretty good. That definitely needs fixing. At the moment I'm kind of avoiding playing Octane because this is a huge problem. And then we also have Bangalore, which has the 2nd smallest area of pixels for their hitbox in the game, which is crazy because Bangalore doesn't have low profile. So in terms of, like, if you're looking for the best hitbox, obviously we have Wraith, but if you really don't want to play Wraith, then Bangalore is actually a really good pick. And obviously she has her passive, which makes her go faster. That's actually a really interesting thing to see, and I'm going to be playing more Bangalore games now because I'm curious to see how many more bullets I can dodge. And I'm going to be paying attention when I get into a game how easy it is for me to hit different legends. Obviously Wraith is a nightmare, Pathfinder is a nightmare, you know, we know this story, but what about the other legends? I'm really curious. So now I want to rank the legend hitboxes based on their pixel size, their hitbox issues, their head hitbox, whether they have fortified or the low profile perk. And of course in last place we're going to have to put Revenant with the 3rd biggest hitbox in the game, a huge upper chest area to shoot at, and so many glaring problems with the hitbox, and most importantly low profile. Revenant just doesn't fit in line with the rest of the legends. He really needs a change there. I've put Gibraltar in 11th. Obviously he is the biggest legend in the game, so that's why. Now his gun shield is kind of like a redeeming feature, so I kind of feel like he has to be disqualified from this list, but regardless of gun shield, then yeah, he would be in 11th place. Caustic is 10th, and Caustic's hitbox is actually pretty decent now, but he's still such a big character, so I've put him higher than the other legends. In 9th we have Octane, which is kind of 2 places lower than his actual pixel area size, and that's obviously because of the glitched area above his head. This is such a big problem. Bloodhound is in 8th, different to Bloodhound's actual pixel size. Bloodhound also has a pretty big head hitbox, which is why I've ranked Bloodhound lower than the next pick at 7th, which is Mirage. Mirage has a really large area to shoot at, quite close to Revenant, but obviously it's spread lengthways through his legs and, you know, the rest of it, so it's more even area, but still a lot of area to shoot at. At 6th we have Crypto. Crypto has the potential to have a good hitbox actually, but the issue I have with Crypto is there are some areas on his body he gets shot at. If those bits got fixed, I'd rank Crypto higher because he doesn't have low profile despite his relatively small pixel area. In 5th we have Watson. Watson's is pretty good, but she has low profile, and of course there are smaller legends with low profile. Then 4th we have Lifeline, pretty much the same story as Watson. Pathfinder in 3rd, his hitbox is great, but then in 2nd we have Bangalore because the area to shoot Bangalore is really small. She doesn't have low profile. But then of course at 1st we have Wraith because her hitbox is just so much smaller than every other legend. It's just it's obvious. So that's it, right? We've covered every hitbox in the game and we've ranked them perfectly. Well, no, there's a big problem. Hitboxes are only part of the story. We took a static image of each legend from the same angle, but when legends start moving, their animations start coming to play, and every legend has different animations. So whilst I'm talking about this, I'm going to just play the strafing animations of each legend in the background, and what I'm about to share is partially based on this, but it's also based on my own experience over 1,700 hours in the game. So this is based on their strafing animations, the animations when they zigzag, the animation when they crouch spam, when they jump, when they do what I like to call cut strafing. Tons of different animations. Every legend has something different. So I'm going to go through all of them quickly and how this changes the ranking for a final ranking on how easy it is to hit a legend, basically. So in 12th, Revenant stays the same. Revenant's animations they're pretty good, but because his hitbox is broken, it doesn't really matter anyway. Gibraltar's animations can actually be quite good if you learn how to strafe spam really well, but Gibraltar is really big, so he stays in 11th place. Caustic is 10th. Once again, it's the same story. His animations are pretty poor, but he's smaller than Gibraltar, so he gets a plus there. Now, this is where things start to change. Bloodhound and Mirage have been pushed up to 9th and 8th because Octane takes a big push up thanks to his great strafing animations. Octane crouches down a lot when he starts to run, which means that Octane crouches down a lot when he's strafing back and forth, and a lot of his animations have him with this leaning forward approach, which means he's a lot harder to hit. The actual visible area of his hitbox is smaller. Once Octane's hitbox gets fixed, he will definitely rank higher as well. In 6th, we have Crypto. He's pretty much staying the same. He does have some really good animations when you're strafe spamming because his head turns from left to right like crazy, but headshots aren't huge in this game, so it doesn't make too much difference. So yeah. Now, Lifeline has traded places with a couple legends. Lifeline's great, but her animations aren't as great as Watson's, which we'll talk about in a minute. Bangalore has been pushed all of the way up to 4th. Her animations are pretty decent, but there are two legends that rank much higher, and I'll talk about those now. So, Watson's animations are incredible. If you learn how to strafe spam, if you learn how to turn quickly, if you do cut strafing, Watson is really hard to hit. She has this weird, like, jolty animation where she turns side to side. It's really hard to hit a good Watson player, like, really hard. And then we have Pathfinder in 2nd, who has jumped in front of Bangalore because when Pathfinder crouch spams, he's really hard to hit. He has these really tall legs and they just spam up and down, and it becomes a really difficult situation to hit. Now, Wraith is still in number 1 because basically she's so small, which means all of her animations to kind of fit in sync with all of the other legends means she has to take wider strides. She moves quicker in that same area, if that makes sense. So yeah, hitting a Wraith is really hard. Her being so small just really favors her. She is the absolute best legend in Apex Legends if you're trying to dodge bullets. Is it surprise? No. So hopefully this covers everything. I've covered hitboxes, the actual area of their hitboxes, whether fortified and things like that matter. Are there some hitboxes that are broken? How do the animations come into play? And we have this final list. Now, I really hope that the kind of suggestions I've given in this video also, you know, maybe they will give Respawn some inspiration to get all of this fixed and it'll be better in the future. But yeah, this is my list. I would say the top 5 picks are really great. Pathfinder, Wraith and Watson are absolutely incredible, but once it goes past that into the 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th, you really have a bit of a problem. Caustic's okay, but he is pretty big. Gibraltar's, it doesn't matter, he's a wild card because of that gun shield, and Revenant's just terrible. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the comments. Cheerio! Thank you so much for watching. If you want more content, I am currently doing a sort of Apex training series in my members area, so it's just $2.99 a month to join, and I'll be adding new videos every week, and you can talk with me and ask me what videos or tips you want me to create, and I'll make videos specially created for the members. So yeah, definitely sign up for that.